operating investments are specifically designed to address these many problems that David Eby has created in British Columbia. The tax relief that we're putting in place is to help with affordability. The plan we have put in place around housing will create stability and create rental units and help to stabilize that market and bring some of those costs down for people. And the most important thing, to get our economy going so that we aren't burdening the future with additional credit card debt like the NDP are doing, but that we have that sound fiscal management that's needed to get us back to a balanced budget within 2 years and to make sure that our economy can meet the needs of people in this province. So I'm very pleased to present to you the platform that we have, and I'm very pleased to say that under a Conservative government, common sense change will be the approach that we take in British Columbia. Enough of a province that's run by ideology, that's run by the NDP. We need to get back to a province that is going to be sound fiscal management, but most importantly, that's going to put people first. Make sure that we put patients first, make sure that we put youth first, make sure that this province is a place that people can once again be proud to be called British Columbians. Thank you very much, and I look forward to any questions you might have. We have that honour of forming government. We have many great candidates across this province, many great people, like many of the candidates that are here today, that are fighting hard on a day-to-day basis for people in this province, for their riding, to make sure they're well represented. We're going to make sure, should we have that honour of forming government, that we have a cabinet that comes forward that is reflective of all the people in British Columbia from across this province, and that draws on the great skill sets we have from so many of our good candidates.
Yvette with the CBC.
Oh, sorry. I'm Ashley with the Canadian Press. I'm sorry, I accidentally cut in front of her. You just said that you're going to balance the budget in 2 years.
No, two terms, sorry. Two terms, my sorry.
What is the hard number for how much your platform will cost? I haven't heard of a hard round number.
So, like I say, the platform, when you look at the NDP's budget that they brought forward in March of 2024, which of course they have blown within 3 months. They've actually added another $1 billion in budget to that. But when you look at that, we will be adding over the next 2 years $2.3 billion in additional spending, plus the additional tax relief that we're looking at putting on top of that. Overall, though, by getting our economy going, by increasing what I'm expecting to do, that is what is going to level that out and bring down our deficit over the 2 terms.
Yvette, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Rustad. My name's Yvette.
Hi, Yvette.
How can British Columbians have confidence in this platform when you're releasing these details, 4 days before an election? A lot of people are distracted, have a lot of other things going on in their lives. How can they have confidence in what you're bringing forward here?
It's out of the 200 pages or so in the platform, we have been releasing every single day of this campaign, 1, 2, 3 platform pieces as we've gone. We've been highlighting what we are doing as the Conservative Party and the optimism that we're building in British Columbia for a positive common sense change. The only piece that is new here today that you see is the final budgeting numbers. To release that early would have meant we would have had to release everything that we were doing as part of our platform. And so we wanted to use the campaign to be able to highlight what we are doing as the Conservative Party and how we're going to make sure that we can bring about common sense change for people in British Columbia.
And where will you be focusing cuts, given the massive tax cuts that you are promising?
So the first thing that we are going to focus on is exactly that, reducing costs for people, putting money back into the pockets of British Columbians. We think that's the best place for that money to be. That will help in terms of the economy. There is some places we're going to need to be doing some reviewing of government spending. For example, there's $4 billion in contingencies. Last year there's $5 billion in contingencies. There's things like Clean BC, which is going to be devastating for our economy going forward, that we need to be removing. So we're going to look at all of these NDP pet projects and where that spending is going to make sure that we are respecting taxpayers and we're making sure that we get the best value for the money. However, we are expanding spending on healthcare. We're expanding additional spending on things like education and the other services that are needed are critical for people in British Columbia.
Anaïs, Radio Canada.
Hi, Mr. Rustad. I just wanted some clarification around, for instance, you've announced a hospital in Surrey. We know that the St. Paul Hospital is around like $2.1 billion, yet in the appendix under BC building, you're planning 1.1 billion, and then there's more money under healthcare. So I'm not clear what is funded.
Sure. So when it comes to the capital projects, there's a number of capital projects that we have announced, things like the Massey Place tunnel replacement with the bridge, looking at the Patella Bridge, extending that out to 6 lanes, continue widening of the highway all the way out to Chilliwack, as well as so many other projects we need to, even in Prince George, the new surgical tower and services that are needed there, along with a helipad that's needed in a place like Prince George. All of these things we have not costed in terms of the actual capital side, including the new hospital in Surrey that needs to be done. I'm anticipating that project will likely be in the vicinity of around $3 billion. However, until we actually are able to draw the designs, until we're able to work with the healthcare professionals to make sure we know exactly what goes in there, it would be inappropriate for me to put that kind of a number. But what I can say with regards to our capital projects is we're looking at the way that the NDP has done their projects. With their approach that they have done, we have seen costs skyrocket anywhere from 10 to 25% or even higher. We're going to make sure that we de-risk projects. We're going to make sure that we have open tendering to make sure we get the best value for taxpayers. We think there's significant savings within the capital budget of the NDP to be able to put money towards many of these projects in the short term.
You also say that the BC NDP has been drowning the province in a sea of red ink. I'm wondering what type of deficit you're looking at, because you're saying that it will take you 2 terms to balance it out. But what type of deficit are we looking at for the first term or the first 2 years even?
So what we've seen from the NDP is they've taken a $2.7 billion surplus and running now the largest deficit in BC's history at just over $9 billion at this point. That's what I mean by red ink. They have been fiscally irresponsible, squandering our future, squandering our kids' future through these investments that they've made. Not the critical capital investments they made, but just the credit card spending that they're doing on their pet projects. What we're looking at, certainly going forward, our deficit will be slightly larger than what the NDP are projecting for this year and for next year as we add those critical additional spending, that additional $1.2 billion annually that will be added into that. However, through our approach with the investment that we need to see in our economy, the additional revenues that will come from there will offset by the time we get to the 3rd and 4th year. Our deficit is projected to be lower than what the NDP's deficit is, and then projecting going forward through to a second term to being able to get to balance.
Jack Morriswood City.
Hi, John. So I really do want to push you on this. From what I'm hearing, $11 billion deficit first year, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Of course.
Sorry, about just over 10, depending on where the NDP are at with their numbers. It's hard to know exactly what it is, but our deficit will increase by just over $1 billion in year one.
Okay. So the NDP deficit projected is $9 billion. How you've kind of positioned yourself as the party for cutting some of these programs, cutting some of these taxes, improving affordability. How do you square the circle of proposing a higher deficit than the NDP while saying that you will be the more fiscally responsible party?
So first of all, when you take a look at the NDP's platform, they have $24 billion worth of deficit scheduled over the next 3 years. Our deficit targets are significantly lower than that, obviously going into over 3 years in terms of what we're projecting to be able to do. By getting the economy going, we actually think we can lower that, and we have not gone through and done that review of their spending, and for things like Clean BC and other things that we need to be looking at removing from the budget. So there's significant potential for being able to reduce that. I just want to be straight up with people right now in terms of the fact that we are going to be adding spending and that we are going to be putting those tax relief that is much needed for people in British Columbia.
Thank you.
With that, we'll be going to call in Richard Zuss. Just a reminder to press *1 if you want to be added to the queue. Richard Zussman with Global.
John, I'm trying to get a sense of the numbers. When you talk about $1.1 billion in new spending, but at the same time talk about $900 million in new healthcare spending, I'm trying to understand specifically where is the new spending coming from, and can you break that down a little bit for us in terms of where the healthcare spending will be coming from, and what makes up that 1.1 in additional spending in that first and second year?
Yeah, so it's about $2.3 billion in additional spending over the 2 years that we budgeted for. The healthcare spending is set to increase by $3.8 billion, which is similar to what the NDP had proposed. It's slightly higher in terms of the additional spending, but that additional spending on healthcare makes up a significant component, as does some of the initiatives that are needed to be able to get other components moving in our economy. Some of those investments that are needed there. So we've broken down roughly the targets that we're looking at, and you'll see that when you get a chance to look through the full document in terms of costing. But the reality is, of course, we can't know exactly how bad things are under the NDP budget because they've hidden so many things in their budgeting. Just think, they came out with a budget in March with an $8 billion deficit, and within 3 months, they're now at just around $9 billion deficit, a $1.1 billion increase over 3 months. Who knows what other crazy things this government has been doing? We don't have a second quarter update at this point. So it's difficult to say exactly where those numbers are going to be.
One of the criticisms has been some of your candidates are not speaking directly to voters through candidate forums. I know in the past you said it's ultimately up to them. Are you worried at all with a platform coming out so late that you are missing opportunities to speak directly to voters about what you have on offer here?
So part of what we did, Richard, in terms of releasing and the approach that we took to the campaign, was releasing components every single day. Our candidates have been out knocking on doors every single day and meeting with people in their riding. They've been talking about the changes we need for healthcare. They've been talking about the tax relief that we're going to put in place. They've been talking about how we're going to end this decriminalization and safe supply that have been so destructive to lives across this province. They've been talking about how we're going to resolve the crime issues that we're seeing in this province and how we're going to get our economy going. All of these things we've been rolling out and much more. Our candidates have had the opportunities to be out and about engaging with people in their ridings on a regular basis. They're still doing that, and they will be doing that right up until October 19th on voting day, and in the way they're going to be connecting with people in this province.
Wolf with Black Press.
Yes, John, good morning. Thank you for taking my question. I want to ask you about your growth projections. Your platform is projecting a growth of 5.4%. How realistic is that, considering that TD forecast is predicting 1.8% over the next decade or so? How can we trust these numbers of 5.4%? Emerging economies do that, but not developed economies like BC's.
It's interesting. The NDP actually projected just over 4% in terms of nominal growth, and net projections coming in at around 2.3 or even lower than that at this point. So we're taking those projections, looking at it. But let's just take mining, for example. If we get mining going in this province and get some of these mines open, there's 16 mines, 17 mines that are permitted, that are ready to go in this province. That's a $38 billion investment. That'll add over $800 billion to British Columbia's GDP. And once those mines are up and running, just that alone will bring in additional about 4.2 billion direct revenue, plus the secondary and tertiary revenues that would come in from that. So just mining alone would be able to give us that additional growth that's needed in this province. Not to mention getting our forest industry back on its feet and taking advantage of the other resources that we need to be doing. So there's lots of places to be able to expand and grow our economy, to be able to get those kind of revenues that we need to see the better growth that we're hoping to be able to see.
Thank you for that. Follow-up question, if you wish. And I'll ask a variation of the question that you've already answered. But how much does it undermine your party's message around fiscal accountability if you acknowledge that that your first budget is going to be as big, if not bigger, in terms of deficit than the NDP's? So if I'm a voter concerned about fiscal stability, why should I vote for your party when you yourself acknowledge that your party is going to have, at least for a while, the same problems as the NDP? Thank you.
Big piece of the difference between us and the NDP. The NDP have been reckless in terms of their spending and approaches. They've spent a lot on ideology, and so we're obviously going to be taking a significant review of where the government has been spending money. We've seen a 70% increase in government budget. Actually, it's larger than that now. We've also seen the public sector grow by almost 50%. And can anybody say after 7 years that anything is better, that they're receiving better services in this province? And so we want to make sure that we are actually focused on the services that need to be delivered. But that means I'm not going to be coming in and being draconian saying that there should be cuts. I not want to take that approach. We want to make sure that we protect the frontline services that are needed for people in British Columbia. But at the same time, we are going to be doing review of that spending and approach that's needed in government. And that's the difference. The NDP are doing nothing but looking at raising taxes. They're going to double the carbon tax. They've talked about raising additional taxes already as part of their platform. We're going to be looking at every opportunity we can to provide relief for people and to try to make sure that the spending is done wisely and respecting taxpayers.
Justine with the Globe and Mail.
Hi, thank you. So you say you're going to pay for a lot of these promises by boosting the economy. Excuse me. And as you know, every budget includes a caveat about the risks to the forecast that are outside of BC's control. Lumber prices.
Justine, I think you got cut off there. Are you still there?
Okay, we will go to Rob Buffum with CTV.
I wanted to get you to just kind of weigh in a bit further about the healthcare component of this. As you know, the NDP has said that your plan would result in $4.1 billion in healthcare cuts. And I haven't had a chance to go through this document much, but I heard you mention, in fact, it would be $900 million annually in increased spending. Can you tell us, A, address whether there would be healthcare cuts, and B, if not, where the extra spending would be allocated?
So thank you for that, Rob. And the NDP have been lying since day one in this campaign. Every single day of this campaign, they've been coming out with more lies about what we are and what we're trying to do as the Conservative Party. As you will see in the budget, we will be increasing healthcare spending by $3.8 billion over 3 years. And that's slightly up from what the NDP are proposing to do. The reason for the increase is we need to be able to have the flexibility for the changes that are needed, move towards a patient-first healthcare, to have the funding follow the patient. And as we build out that new model, we will see more efficiencies, but we want to make sure that the government is there to be able to provide those services that are needed for people and try to address some of these horrendous wait times and ER closures that we're seeing across the province.
By way of follow-up, I wanted to ask you about the component of your, I guess maybe twofold. One, confirming there's nothing substantively new in here other than the budget numbers, but also wanted to get your thoughts on or reaction to the fact that my colleague Rustad spotted yesterday that your education component of your platform changed from what was in a release, and the language was watered down, if you want to put it that way. I just want to know what was behind that and how much of this was being penned right up to the last minute.
Sure. So there's a number of things in there in the platform. When you look at, there are a few nuances in there. Things like, for example, how we're going to deal with freedom of information requests. Those sort of things that needed to be highlighted. When it came to the education platform, there was a number of ideas that came forward by staff as we worked through the education component many weeks ago. And when we finalized the component, we had it ready to go for the time when we released it. Unfortunately, on Sunday, I had a day off. It was my only day off in 18 days. I was up north having Thanksgiving dinner with my family, as well. A number of other campaign people were on a break on that day as well. And unfortunately, when the release went out, somebody had grabbed an old version from many weeks ago and that released it. And when we realized the error, we pulled that down and put the actual education platform out.
Thank you. That'll be all.
Thanks, you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So many people dying in the streets of Vancouver.
Thank you very much.
John, so many people dying in the streets of Vancouver. Why do you want to continue with the World Cup?
Have a nice day, everybody. Thank you very much for coming out.